Is Johnny Lawrence becoming a better man? It's no secret that throughout his journey in Cobra Kai, he's tried to make things right not only for himself but with his family as well. Season 5 finally confirmed for us what we knew he could be all along, a better mentor both to Miguel and his son Robbie. This is why Johnny Lawrence is becoming a better father. Let's talk about how he achieved this, his relationship with Daniel and Chozen, making amends with Hawk, and more. Let's recap what we know about Johnny so far. Since this is a continuation of my previous video, why Johnny Lawrence is becoming a better sensei, I'm only going to cover the events of Johnny's arc in Season 5. Feel free to skip ahead if you want to avoid the recap, but be warned, you may miss some important details later on in the video. Johnny arrives in Mexico and begins his search for Miguel, taking Robbie along to guise the trip as a father-son bonding trip, though Keen can see through this and is upset about the ruse. After the van gets a flat, Johnny tells his son that he's trying to make things right so he doesn't have to live with regret and urges him to do the same. Lawrence tracks down a group of surfers who saw Diaz and fights them as they try to scam him for his wallet and is assisted by Robbie, who wants to stay and make things right with Miguel. After the van is towed, the two witness a pepper eating contest, which Keen enters and wins after Lawrence bets all the money on him. Thanks to a tip from Carmen, Johnny tracks down Miguel and Hector at El Hoyo Verde, where the latter assumes he's FBI because of their shirts and orders his men to take care of Johnny. With another assist from Robbie, Lawrence puts down the wolf and eventually tracks down Miguel. Back in the States, he discovers Carmen may be pregnant and although nervous at first, manages to baby-proof the apartment and is excited when he learns they're officially having a baby. To continue this new leaf, Johnny starts working as a rideshare and delivery driver after a suggestion from Shannon, making amends with her and wanting Robbie to stay with him so he can start to make things right, as well as help him get over his differences with Miguel. Despite some failed attempts at first, Johnny is able to resolve the rivalry after a visit and suggestion from Daniel LaRusso, who he also gives advice to in return. He then learns that Silver attacked and defeated Daniel, gets acquainted with Chozen, and the two head to Cobra Kai's newly acquired dojo, which used to be Topanga Karate, to confront Terry. The two fight and defeat Hyun Woo instead and meet Kim Da-eun, and with some help from Sam and Robbie, manage to convince Daniel to fight Cobra Kai once again. Although refusing the idea from Amanda at first, Johnny and Daniel talk to Kreese in prison and figure out Silver's plans on entering the Sekai Takai to take Cobra Kai global. The three senseis manage to call out Terry's deceptive lies and secure not only a presentation, but 2 audition fights against Cobra Kai. Miyagi Fang manages to gain entry along with Cobra Kai, and the following day, after an encounter with Silver, Johnny informs the LaRussos and Chozen that Carmen's pregnant, and the gang decides to go out and celebrate per Louie's idea. Johnny and Chozen bond along with Daniel, and when the party limo is hijacked by Mike Barnes, they go along with the suggestion to finally confront Silver directly. The three consequences take the fight directly to Silver, with Johnny taking on the way of the Fist Senseis, while Chozen dukes it out with Terry. Despite his best efforts, Lawrence is overwhelmed but pulls through due to an adrenaline-fueled drunken rage and with an assist from Mike Barnes. The three manage to come back in time to witness Silver's arrest on their way to the hospital, and Johnny reunites with Carmen and congratulates Daniel on defeating Silver, but learns about Kreese's escape from prison. Let's first talk about how Johnny started becoming a better father. As we saw at the end of Season 4, he finally reconciled with his son Robbie, admitting his faults, and decided to take him on his road trip to Mexico to find Miguel. We start to see Johnny become a father to Robbie as he buys him some snacks, and admits the truth about the trip's real purpose, but wants his son to stay because he didn't want to leave him back home and wanted his help. When fixing up the flat tire, Johnny tells Robbie that he was aware that he was staying in the van after he ran away because he and Daniel were out looking for him and chased down the pissant to a chop shop. He also tells his son that he let him down more times than he can count, but he also let down Miguel, and is trying to make things right for both of them so he doesn't have to live with the regret. Johnny also suggests that he should try to squash his rivalry with Miguel, as he knows he has his fair share of regrets with him as well. As I talked about in my How Robbie Became Better video, it's these words that start to sink in with Robbie and inspire him to stay behind and help. Lawrence also doesn't want to put Carmen in any more danger and promises to handle it as he wants to be the one to personally find his other son. At the bus stop, we see Johnny give Robbie what he needs for both the ticket and food and apologizes, being a supportive father once again. Because of this, he earns Robbie's help as the two fight for the first time not only side by side but also as father and son, as the two use various techniques from what they've learned both with Miyagi-Do and some Cobra Kai or Eagle Fang in Johnny's case. That night, we see the two are both more alike than they realize as they ice their heads at the same time and drink in unison. Johnny urges Robbie to catch the bus, but because his son recognizes that he wants to make things right, he wants to stay behind and help, and even shows that he swiped the map from Owen. Lawrence smiles and bonds with his son even more, especially as they share snacks on the way to their next destination. Although Robbie is the one to step up for the pepper eating contest, it is Johnny who gives him the idea to cover his mouth in case he has to spit out the pepper, inspiring him to use the Miyagi-Do breathing technique to disguise his trick. Showing faith in his son, he puts all the money on him and expresses how proud he is when he finds out Robbie tricked his opponent, calling it the most badass thing he's ever seen, realizing that his son is just like him. During his fight with Vicente Gonzalez, Lawrence pleads with Robbie to stay back as this is his fight, but is still thankful for his son's quick thinking and accepts the help. Realizing that Johnny searched for him and telling his mom he's coming home, Miguel realizes his sensei is the closest thing he has to a dad, as Johnny is glad to see is safe, hugging him and making sure he's okay. The moment Carmen tells him she might be pregnant, Johnny is clearly nervous and overreacts, trying to prove he's okay, but eventually confides in Carmen that he felt useless when Shannon was pregnant and doesn't want to be that guy again. When realizing he's disappointing Carmen, in a parallel to season 1 where he took her advice to not hold on to the past, Johnny decides to baby-proof the entire apartment all in one day and educates himself. He practices holding some baby cores, cleans out the fridge, and redecorates the apartment. He's later visited by Miguel, who in a similar situation isn't sure what to say to Sam. Johnny tells Diaz that he doesn't need to have it all figured out, just to be honest and see where he goes from there, realizing he can apply that to his own situation. He tells Carmen that he's not going to back down with whatever happens and will do whatever it takes to be there for her and the baby. This is also seen in the following episode, Downward Spiral, where he has lined up several job interviews, albeit shady ones, and gets help from Shannon to become a rideshare driver. Johnny gets fed up with this job quickly, oblivious to his lack of customer service, and it isn't until he talks to Lyle who, despite their somewhat volatile relationship, gives some sound advice. Once you figure out what matters most, all that other stuff gets a little easier because you know you're doing it for them. Learning from this, he formally makes amends with Shannon, apologizing for what he did in the past, and wants Robbie to stay with him. Resolved to have Robbie and Miguel in their feud to bring the family together, he intervenes in their argument, but it doesn't work. Johnny continues these attempts by tricking the two to eat together at Olive Garden, hyping up the breadsticks, and using the internet once again to turn his apartment into an escape room. When this also fails, he admits to Rosa that he screwed up, and it's not until after a visit from Daniel LaRusso that he encourages Miguel and Robbie to fight it out to get it out of their system. After they successfully do so, he lets them know about the baby on the way and orders Olive Garden as a treat, with Carmen commenting that he got them to be friends. This arc is mostly wrapped up until the last 3 episodes of the season. In Taikai, Johnny tells Miguel that it's up to him if he wants to compete, unsure if Robbie is joking by his comment, as he's also trying to consider his feelings, and leaves the apartment in the boys' care when taking out Carmen and Rosa. In Survivors, after Carmen's ultrasound appointment, Lawrence lets slip to Silver about their new baby, and this later comes up in Head of the Snake, as Terry taunts him that he won't be around to screw up another kid. When the picture falls out of his coat, this sends Johnny into another gear due to adrenaline as he nearly results to pure street fighting and wrestling-like maneuvers. A tackle, a hip toss, a foreign object, a spine buster, a low blow, and a Razor Ramon-like powerbomb. This is enough to nearly put away every way of the Fist Sensei outside of Hyun Woo and Min Jun, and it's thanks to his new friend Mike Barnes that Johnny survives. Making good on his promise to be safe, Johnny makes it back to Carmen and embraces her. He tells her that he wants to be there for his family no matter what, and that is what compelled him to keep pushing forward. Understandably, many have been critical of Johnny as a father because of how he abandoned Robbie on day 1, and that he decided to keep bonding with Miguel instead. I feel that he made several attempts to make it right, and Season 5 definitely showed us that he knew he was in the wrong and wanted to mitigate that damage further. Instead of freaking out and running away from Carmen, he stayed, made things right with Miguel and Robbie, and was the one to bring this new family together. I can't wait to see how this develops even more in Season 6, and one can't help but wonder if he'll be able to juggle this along with Teach and Miyagi-Fang. Let's also talk about Johnny's relationship with Daniel and Chozen. One of the best moments in his relationship with Daniel is in Extreme Measures, where the two swap roles for once. Johnny is more mature, okay with taking his loss to Cobra Kai, not knowing it was done through dirty means, and doesn't want to go along with Daniel's idea to fight Silver. When called out for this attitude, because of what he learned on Goggle, Johnny simply asks what Daniel was doing, noticing that he's acting like a lunatic, smelling of alcohol, and wanting to fight him. LaRusso realizes this and takes a seat as Johnny offers him a drink. This role reversal is also signified as part of the Ace Degenerate motif plays in the background, this time with a pan flute, showing that Johnny still has some Miyagi-Do in him. When brought up to speed, Lawrence encourages Daniel to keep his head out of his ass because family is his strong suit, while admitting family isn't his own strong suit as noted by his failed escape room idea. Daniel in return knows that whatever approach he uses, he cares both about Miguel and Robbie, and the two share mutual respect as the two take each other's lead to solve their own problems. Feeling that Daniel helped pull his family together, Johnny visits the LaRusso household only to discover that Daniel is healing from a fight with Silver and resolves to join Chozen and Amanda to get back at Cobra Kai. When Daniel resolves to leave the situation alone, Johnny implores that his former rival help kids and can't believe he's given up. Finding out that Topanga Karate is now owned by Silver, Johnny is joined by Chozen, who he doesn't respect at first, when the two visit the new Cobra Kai dojo location. Lawrence and Toguchi try to one-up each other at first, but admit their mutual respect for Daniel as he never backed down from a fight in his younger days, and the two then try to one-up each other on the feats Daniel has done. Fighting Hyun Woo in Daniel's honor, something Daniel would do and vice versa at the end of the season, the two bad boys tell Kim Da-eun that this isn't over and that they're not going to take over the valley. When discussing how he took on 6 senseis by himself, Johnny is impressed by Chozen's feat and agrees with both Sam and Amanda that they can be there for Daniel since Mr. Miyagi is no longer around, someone he still respects when reminded by Daniel that he saved his life. One of the most powerful moments in Johnny and Daniel's new friendship is the subtle nod the former gives LaRusso, calming and easing Daniel as he knows he's no longer alone. Johnny shows that he has the same type of thinking in common as Chozen as he suggests calling Silver's old friends. Knowing Kreese can't be trusted and against the idea at first, Lawrence and LaRusso visit Kreese and come up with the idea to trick Kreese for what he knows by showing him no mercy, which amuses Johnny. The Miyagi-Fangs alliance conversation shows how much their bond is strengthened as they finish each other's sentences when informing Gunther that they have All Valley champions on their team. Despite how it went last time, the two senseis along with Chozen successfully blend their styles together, with Johnny even trying to inform the Sekai Takai Council about the history of Shrimpo Sensei in a misguided way, and bringing his coach-like teaching style to the students. Johnny is also the first to suggest Miyagi-Do to be the dojo's name, showing his respect for Daniel and Chozen, and Daniel returns the favor by stating that they're not one without the other. Announcing Carmen's pregnancy, Chozen and Daniel offer their support and congratulations when finding out Johnny is going to be a father again. A favorite moment of mine in Survivors is when Johnny and Chozen find common ground again, with the former stating he was focused on a kick in the past when he should have been moving forward, something he similarly told Robbie when he said not to let the match eat him up. Hearing about his crush on Kumiko and telling this to Daniel so he can help Chozen with this, the three get together and dance with Carmen and Amanda on the dance floor, with an appearance from Louie, Vanessa, and Anush getting into a fight. Johnny continues to party with Chozen and Daniel, appropriately singing Eye of the Tiger, and even defends Daniel when seeing him confronted by Mike Barnes, similar to how Chozen did the same in Playing with Fire. When Johnny and Chozen go along with Mike Barnes' idea because of everything Silver did, the former encourages Daniel to saddle up and even agrees to take on the sensei so Chozen can catch up with Silver. After Cobra Kai's downfall, Johnny hugs Daniel for the first time and congratulates him for defeating Silver. Johnny's new relationship with both Daniel and Chozen is definitely a highlight of Season 5 for me. The two helped Johnny move forward with his own life in different ways and helped each other out when they needed to. I'm hoping we'll see more of this in Season 6, as it seems that Chozen is still sticking around to help with the Sekai Takai. However, given the final trailer for Cobra Kai Season 6 Part 1, there seems to be some conflicts once again between Daniel and Johnny's methods of teaching. With Mike Barnes now also in the mix, it's going to be interesting to see if they can all get on the same page again. Something I like to also talk about briefly is how Johnny made amends with Hawk. In the fall, Johnny orders Miguel to take Hawk out because he picked a side, most likely hurt because Eli decided to join Miyagi-Do, not knowing it was to make amends and to also be there with Dimitri. This is also evident by Johnny notably cheering for Miguel in his fight against Hawk before his injury. Lawrence is also notably observant during Hawk's finals match with Robbie, as he looks to LaRusso and there is a shot showing he's conflicted staying mad at Hawk, as you can see him in the background clapping for him when the fight is over. As I talked about in my Why Hawk is Still an Awesome Character video, this could be because Hawk ultimately won the fight using a move that he learned under Johnny's tutelage. The same move Johnny used to counter the pressure points, and as we saw in the original Karate Kid film, a similar move that was used in one of Bobby Brown's matches. On screen, the two don't interact again until Taikai, where Johnny talks to him, Miguel, and Robbie as the senseis aren't sure who to pick for the fight. When Miguel and Robbie suggest Hawk because he's the champion who won fair and square, Johnny takes him under his wing once again to train that night. Lawrence is the first to cheer on the point Hawk should have been granted, disputing the ref's decision. When Hawk says it's time to encage the Hawk, he looks to Johnny while saying this, who raises his fist in agreement. After the silver bullet, it's Lawrence who rushes to the mat first, calling for the medic, and is the one to not only help him off the mat, with help from the medic and Daniel, but is the one to comfort him during Devin's match. Although these details I somewhat skipped over on the first watch of Season 5, it was cool to see these interactions take place, as Johnny said in Season 3, it was him who made Hawk who he was. I'd like to think that having put his rivalry with Daniel aside, and also observing Miguel and Robbie do this helped him in his relationship with Hawk. Here are my final thoughts on Johnny and what we can expect to see from him in the future. While it took a while to get here, Johnny's arc has been well written thus far, and it's very hard to dislike his character. Sure, he's not perfect and has made mistakes, but the fact that he's doing something about it is what makes this character admirable. In a 180 from how his character was in the 80s, Johnny has taken responsibility, admitted fault when needed to, and finally squashed his rivalry with LaRusso, or so we thought given the new trailer, while making new friends in the process. Not only that, he also became a better father in the process, not only to Robbie, but to Miguel and the new Lawrence Diaz on the way. In Season 6, I suspect we'll see more of this, and I personally can't wait to see more interactions between him and Robbie, and of course, the newborn. And speaking of family, Johnny helped Daniel bring his family together through the advice they learned from each other. From rivals to karate brothers, their frenemy relationship has had many twists and turns.